Right now, somewhere in your city, a person is sitting at their kitchen table, staring at a loan statement. They owe $36,000 on a machine currently worth $24,000. They are underwater by 12 grand on something parked in their driveway, losing value every single night while they sleep. The worst part is they walked into that dealership, believing they were making a responsible decision. They compared interest rates, they negotiated the price, they did everything the financial world told them to do, and it still destroyed them. That's not bad luck. That's the system working exactly as it was designed. You've been taught to evaluate a car purchase by looking at two numbers, the sticker price and the interest rate. If the sticker looks competitive and the rate looks low, your brain files it under good deal and moves on. But here's what nobody in that dealership wants you to calculate: the total volume of money that leaves your life over the next decade. Not the monthly slice, not the annual percentage, the full cumulative cost of choosing one path over another. Because your car is the second largest purchase you will ever make. It sits right behind your home. But unlike your home, which at least has a chance of going up in value, your car is a machine engineered to lose money from the second you take the keys. Now here's the lie that makes all of this possible. You've heard people say the gap between new and used has shrunk so much that buying used barely saves anything. Someone at work probably told you about grabbing a 3-year-old Toyota. Why grab it at 25 grand when a new one is only 28? That sounds like a $3,000 difference, except that comparison is rigged. It never accounts for comparable trims or actual transaction prices. When you line up equivalent vehicles with equivalent features, the real spread is not $3,000. A new model at $40,000 sits next to a 4-year-old version. That older version is priced at $20,000. Same utility, double the price. Then comes the financing trick that seals the trap. Dealerships know you're sharp enough to compare APR numbers, so they hand you a glossy 3 or 4% rate on that new car, and they let you feel clever about it. Meanwhile, the used lot across the street quotes 8, maybe 10%. Your instinct says the new car loan is cheaper money, but pull out a calculator. Borrowing $40,000 at 4% costs you roughly $3,000 to $4,000 in total interest over the life of the loan. Borrowing $20,000 at a brutal 8% costs about the same or less, because the pile of debt is half the size. A small percentage of a massive number still buries you. A large percentage of a modest number barely leaves a mark. The dealership trained your eyes to watch the rate, while the principal quietly doubled underneath you. This is the first lie, and most people never catch it. They drive off feeling like they won a negotiation, when the spreadsheet says they just signed away a decade of wealth. Here's a number that should make your stomach turn: $21,000. That's how much value bleeds out of a standard $35,000 sedan over the course of 5 years. Nobody writes you a check for that loss. No bill arrives in the mail. It just disappears from your net worth while you're sleeping, while you're commuting, while you're wiping down the dashboard on a Sunday afternoon, thinking you're protecting your investment. You're not. The market doesn't care how often you wax the paint. It prices your car on 2 cold inputs: age and mileage. Everything else is a story you tell yourself in the driveway. Now here's where the math turns truly vicious. Picture 2 people sitting across from the same finance manager on the same afternoon. Both agree to $500 a month. Buyer A signs for 84 months. Buyer B picks a 3-year-old version of the exact same model and finances it over 36 months. Same monthly hit to the checking account, same lifestyle, same commute. But buyer A hands over $42,000 by the time the loan clears. Buyer B pays $18,000 and walks away free. The gap between those 2 signatures is $24,000. That's not a rounding error. That's a year of rent in most cities. That's a fully funded emergency reserve. That's seed money that could be compounding in an index fund for the next 2 decades. And it was surrendered voluntarily, in a chair, with a pen. Because someone asked the most dangerous question in personal finance. What is your monthly payment? That question is engineered to make you forget multiplication. Lenders stretch terms to 60, 72, even 84 months, precisely so the monthly figure looks digestible. 7 years. Rewind your life 7 years and think about how different everything was. That's the commitment you're signing for a machine. That will be worth a fraction of its purchase price before you even hold the title. But depreciation doesn't punish everyone equally. After year 3, the curve flattens hard. The person who buys that same sedan at 3 years old might lose $200 a month in value instead of $600. That $400 monthly difference stays on their balance sheet instead of evaporating into nothing. And if you're someone who leases or trades in every 3 to 4 years, you're doing something far worse. You're resetting the depreciation clock back to zero every single cycle. You're volunteering to live permanently in the steepest, most expensive stretch of the curve, absorbing the maximum possible financial loss on every vehicle you touch. It's the equivalent of choosing to pay the highest tax bracket on your income, on purpose, forever, with nothing to show for it. So here's what I want you to do right now. Pull up your last car purchase, run that multiplication, and drop your total cost in the comments. Not the monthly, the total. I'm genuinely curious how many of us have been doing this math wrong, and we never even realized it. Picture this. You're sitting in the finance office, pen in hand, and the monthly payment looks manageable. You've done your homework on the sticker price, you feel prepared. But nobody in that room is going to mention the 3 other entities that just lined up behind the dealership to collect from you every single month for the next 5 years. The insurance company, the state, and the bank that holds your title. Each one of them calibrates what they take based on one number: the current market value of the vehicle you just signed for. When you finance a brand new car, you don't actually own it, the bank does. Their name is on the title, and because it's their asset sitting in your driveway, they get to dictate the terms. Full comprehensive coverage, full collision, low deductibles. You have zero say. You're paying premium rates to protect someone else's property, while they charge you interest for the privilege of driving it. Sit with that for a second. You're insuring the bank's car with your money, and paying the bank a monthly fee for the right to do it. Now layer on what the state takes. Registration fees and taxes are pegged directly to what the car is worth. That $50,000 SUV you just drove off the lot is going to generate a registration bill of $600, maybe $800, landing in your mailbox like a small grenade you never budgeted for. Meanwhile, someone driving a $15,000 used wagon pays a fraction of that. Same roads, same potholes, wildly different extraction rates. Then there's insurance on its own. The replacement cost of the vehicle is a massive multiplier that nobody talks about at the dealership. A new car puts the insurance company on the hook for a much bigger payout if you total it, so they price accordingly. We're talking $300 to $500 more per year, compared to a 3-year-old version of the exact same model. Over a 5-year ownership cycle, that's another $2,000 quietly siphoned. It never appears on the window sticker, it never comes up during the test drive, but it's real, and it compounds year after year. Stack all of these layers and a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The more expensive the car, the more institutions feed off your purchase. The dealership takes the margin, the bank takes the interest, the insurance company takes the premium, the state takes the tax. You're not a car owner, you're a host. And every one of these entities has attached itself to your cash flow, proportional to the price tag you chose. Now look at the person driving the paid-off used car. They've severed almost every one of those feeding tubes. They choose their own coverage levels, they pay minimal registration, they owe no interest to anyone. That's not just a savings trick, that's a fundamentally different ownership structure. One person is being systematically harvested, the other person is free. So before you fall in love with anything on a dealer lot, do one thing. Call your insurance agent and get a hard quote on the exact VIN. Then pull up your state's DMV tax estimator. Run those numbers against a 3-year-old equivalent. You need to know the carry cost of the vehicle, not just the purchase price. Because the sticker is the smallest bill you will ever pay on that car. $1 million, that's roughly what disappears from your retirement. If you keep picking the shiny option every 5 years, for the rest of your driving life. Not from a crash, not from a scam. Just from signing, driving off, and repeating. The worst part is you never feel it leave. There's no bank statement line for wealth you will never build. It just quietly never exists. Picture the last time your check engine light flickered on, your stomach tightened. You sat in the auto shop parking lot doing mental math, bracing for a $3,000 disaster. That knot in your gut is exactly why most people walk into a dealership and lock into $600 a month on something factory fresh. They aren't buying transportation, they're buying the absence of that feeling, and the price tag on that emotional comfort is staggering. Most advice here sounds like just invest the difference or think long term. Great on a whiteboard, changes nothing on Monday morning. So forget strategy, I'm going to hand you one boring mechanical move. A move that takes exactly 4 minutes. Open your banking app, create a sub-savings account. Name it something blunt, like car self-insurance. Then set up an automatic transfer. If you currently have a car payment, match that amount into this new account. If you don't, start with $200 a month. The exact number matters less than the automation. You won't remember to do this by hand. You won't feel motivated on a random Tuesday. The auto draft doesn't care about your mood, it just moves money. Build that balance to $2,000 and pause, that's your warranty. But unlike the dealership version, this one has a special clause. A clause no manufacturer will ever match. If nothing breaks, you keep every dollar. With a factory warranty, if the car runs perfectly, the dealer pockets your premium and you get a handshake. With your own fund, silence is profit. Once that $2,000 floor is solid, every dollar above it gets rerouted into a low-cost index fund, something boring that returns around 7% a year. No stock picks, no advisor fees, just one redirect and patience. Here's what patience produces. Say you bought a $20,000 used car instead of a $40,000 new one. That $20,000 gap, parked in an index fund, becomes nearly $40,000 in 10 years, and close to $80,000 in 20. One car decision, one auto draft, and you're looking at a six-figure difference by retirement. Someone in the comments described a father who bought a pickup decades ago, drove it into the ground, and at 70 walked into a dealership, and paid cash for exactly the car he wanted. No loan, no stress, just a man who let his money compound, while everyone else kept resetting the clock with a new note every 5 years. That's not sacrifice, that's what the math looks like. When you actually let it finish running, picture yourself at 70, not on a beach, not puttering around a garden you finally have time for. You're sitting in traffic at 7 a.m., hands on the wheel, of whatever you're driving by then, heading to a job that your knees and back have been begging you to quit for a decade. That's not a scare tactic, that's the exposed nerve. At the end of every number we just walked through, the gap between retiring at 60 and clocking in at 70 isn't created by some catastrophic market crash or a medical bankruptcy. For a disturbing number of people, it's manufactured one car payment at a time, every 5 years, for an entire working life. The math doesn't care how good the leather smells. But here's where I refuse to sell you a fantasy. Nothing I've shown you today is a shortcut to a 7-figure portfolio. There is no hack. The difference between the new car and the used one, that gap of $10, $12, $15,000, isn't going to make you rich next quarter. It's not going to change your life by Friday. What it does is something quieter and honestly more dangerous to ignore. It buys you a buffer, a few extra months of breathing room. If you lose your job, a cushion that sits between you and the credit card. When the furnace dies in January, survival money. The unsexy kind that never makes it into a thumbnail, but keeps your household from cracking under pressure. And look, if you're already sitting on a paid-off house and a portfolio that lets you sleep at night, none of this applies to you. Buy the new car, get the color you want, enjoy it. You've earned the right to absorb that depreciation without flinching. This isn't a sermon, it's a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet says that for everyone still in the accumulation phase, every dollar you park inside a depreciating asset is a dollar that can never compound on your behalf. You always have the right to walk away from this strategy. The moment your net worth makes the math irrelevant, that's the exit door, and it's always open. But until you reach that door, the waiting game is the entire game. A scratch on the bumper is not a failure. A paid-off car with 200,000 miles on it is not embarrassing. It's evidence that you chose to let your money work somewhere it actually multiplies, instead of somewhere it evaporates. I want to hear one number from you in the comments, just one. How many years have you kept your current car? And what did you do with the money you didn't spend on a newer one? Drop that number below. I read every single data point, because real-world math from real people is worth more than any spreadsheet I can build alone.